Ya me la va a dejar cuando quiera irse de vacaciones.
Hola.
James.
Hola, mucho gusto.
Están cansaditas de todo esto.
Sofia has just walked back from school.
Uy, está caliente. Se nota que has estado en el sol caminando.
She's a teenager and lives on a large coffee farm in Nicaragua.
Estaba cansada ahorita. Ay, es tanto caminar. Sí.
¿Cuánto?
Unlike most of us back when we were teenagers, she actually knows what she wants to do when she gets older.
Bueno, mis sueños serían ser una gran traductora de inglés. Sí.
Sofia says she wants to become a great English translator.
¿Por qué?
Me gusta mucho el inglés. Sí.
She's been learning English in high school for a number of weeks now, and although a little shy, she shows off what she's learned.
Una palabra?
Thank you. You're welcome. Y my name is Joseph. Gracias. Thank you.
If Sofia gets into university and becomes an English translator, she will probably live a life off this farm and, with any luck, earn more than $5 a day, which is what her parents earn working on this coffee farm. Every weekday morning, Sofia puts on an immaculate white blouse and knee-length blue skirt, and she walks quickly for an hour down a deserted dirt road. And she chooses to walk quickly because her parents have been overhearing rumors.
He heard like somebody was planning. I don't think he ever heard the people themselves.
Who it was, okay.
Yeah.
This is Camila, an NGO worker who's helping translate and is on good terms with Sofia's mother.
We were just talking when we were coming down here. Was the dad tries to like walk the daughters to school because he overheard some men, like it was people were telling him that they were planning on like attacking the daughters basically, like halfway like when they're coming back home.
Physical assault is one of many challenges standing in the way of Sofia reaching her dream of being an English translator. To reach her dream, she will also need her father to stay employed. And she will need a quality education from her high school. But what are the odds of all these things working out for her? And this story is much bigger than Sofia. She is one of hundreds of thousands of coffee farm kids in Central America. And us, we coffee drinkers, are connected to Sofia's story. The coffee farm that keep her parents employed produces specialty coffee. And this coffee might have landed in your $3 cappuccino yesterday. Which is why, at the end of this episode, I'm going to talk with a political economist to see what we, us coffee drinkers, can do to lower these hurdles for Sofia and everybody else. I'm James Harper, and this is Filter Stories. The untold stories hidden in your cup of coffee. Let's start by looking at Sofia's life from the perspective of her parents. Her family lives in a simple brick-and-mortar cottage. They hang their clothes on a line of barbed wire. At 16, Sofia has a much better chance of living a life off these farms than her mother did when she was the same age as her. Here's Sofia's mother, with Camila translating.
Bueno, él nunca fue un padre responsable.
My father was never a responsible father. He, as a matter of fact, he used to like take from my mother's salary and use it to buy alcohol to drink. I do remember that he abused us. He was also abusive to my mother. In the end, they decided to just part ways. My mother decided to kick him out of the house.
As a teenager, Sofia's mother worked on a coffee farm. She did manual work like pruning and harvesting, and with the money she earned, she attended school, but just on Saturdays. But even this proved too expensive, and she dropped out of school when she was 16, the same age as her daughter Sofia is right now.
Bueno, siempre mi sueño fue...
Yes, when I was young, I always wanted to finish studying and have a career that would provide a stable job.
Me sentía triste porque
I was sad because it was a dream that I wasn't able to fulfill.
Soon after, Sofia's mother gets into a relationship and gives birth to Sofia when she is 17. It's a decision that she sometimes regrets.
bueno, que se preparen y nunca piensen.
I tell my daughters never to have kids because life is really hard when you have kids.
And it appears like the message has got through to Sofia.
Are there any boys that you might like in school?
Una pregunta. ¿Hay algún chico que les guste en la escuela?
No, por el momento no. 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 Me ha dicho muchas veces que tengo mucha suerte y que tengo que aprovecharla. Sí.
Sofia says, "My mum tells me all the time that I'm lucky and I need to make the most of my luck." Sofia's parents insist she makes the walk to school every day because if she doesn't, it'll be hard for her to get off the farm and earn more than $5 a day. Sofia doesn't have to look far to realize she's also lucky compared to other teenagers on the farm. On the day I visited, a young boy faces a brick wall, crying. Next to him is his older teenage sister, who we're going to call Grace. Grace is confiding something to Camila.
Tu mamá.
Grace's verbal skills are below where they should be for a teenager because she has learning difficulties. And she's confiding to Camila about the latest round of abuse she's suffering at home.
And we know that she suffers abuse from her sister. Like, I've come here on days when she had like wounds that weren't treated for like days.
And Grace wasn't born with learning difficulties either.
She was raped when she was little and like hurt really bad, and that's caused like psychological damages.
So the rape affected her developmentally?
Yeah, she was very young when that happened.
In rural Nicaragua and many parts of Central America, governments struggle to fund comprehensive social services, and underfunded police forces push cases of abuse and rape down the priority list. So Sofia, again, is lucky. She was raised in a relatively stable home, safe from abuse. And that means today, as a teenager, she can walk by Grace's house every weekday, wave good morning to a girl who is a similar age as herself, and continue on that dirt road to get to high school. Grace will wave back to Sofia and stay on the farm. She attends the farm's kindergarten primary school. So while Sofia studies English, Grace enjoys matching letters with their sounds on the school's tablet computer. Speaking of these roads, let's take a good look at them. Sofia's house is far away from the nearest city. From the city, we hop on a public bus for 40 minutes. Then a rented Jeep for another 40 minutes. We drive by men passed out from drinking, lying on their backs by the side of the road. These are the roads that Sofia walks every day. Roughly 60 minutes to get to school and 60 minutes to get back to the farm.
Yes, they do the walk every day.
Is it safe to walk to school?
I think a lot of parents are concerned about safety for their children. There have been cases of, like in communities like this, like rape. So especially if you're thinking of two daughters.
I asked Sofia and her sister, two teenage girls, whether they feel safe on the roads.
Porque es muy peligroso. Porque hay en veces hombres que...
Yeah, I don't feel safe because sometimes there are drunk men who can like start going after you. So I don't feel safe.
Segura la calle, muy peligroso.
What happens when... ¿Qué hace cuando...
I ask, what do you do when you find drunk men on the roads?
Empezamos a caminar rápido.
Start walking fast because if they catch up with you, they could do something bad.
No le pueden hacer algo.
Has anything ever happened?
Sí, una vez los venía persiguiendo un hombre a nosotros.
Yeah, one time a man started going after them, and because their grandmother's house was a little bit closer, they just went directly there to avoid any problems.
Tal vez les podía pasar algo malo.
Do you know who he was?
Un señor.
The husband of one of the ladies who worked as a cook here.
But how long ago was that?
Hace como 2 semanas.
2 weeks ago.
As you would expect, the risks Sofia takes every day are a top concern for her parents. Here's her father.
Sí, usted sabe que yo me quedo pensando aquí.
As a father, he is concerned whenever the daughters leave. He stays thinking about how they are doing and wishes that he could at least do the walk with them, but because of work, he can't. So whenever they come back, it's a joy for him that they're okay.
Sofia's father can't join Sofia and her sister on the walk every day because he's needed on the farm whenever there's work to do. By taking the time off work to walk his daughters to school, he becomes less valuable to his employer compared to the hundreds of others in the area who promise to be more reliable. And Sofia's mother is also in a bind.
Me sentiría mal que algún tiempo ella viajando.
I would feel really bad if something happened to her when she's walking to or from school. But as parents, there's nothing that I can do right now.
Sofia's mother has to take care of her baby daughter and prepare food on the table. To join her daughters walking to school and back would eat up 4 hours of her day. But Sofia's parents have a plan.
A una ciudad pues me encantaría tenerla, pero a veces
I would love to have her live in a city, but paying for a room, for renting a room, would be impossible for us.
por eso ahorita estamos haciendo lo posible.
And that's why we're trying to build a house that will be closer to the school.
Sofia's family are planning to move off this coffee farm and closer to the local town where the high school is. Sofia's father will construct the house himself, and right now he's contemplating selling the family motorcycle to pay for the wood. Sofia's parents are doing everything they can to make her walk to school, the road to a bright future, as short as possible. If Sofia completes high school, the odds are she's not going to get into one of Nicaragua's free but very competitive state universities. To understand why, I connect with Project Alianza.
La finca va a proveer el transporte, que es el camión blanco que está ahí, ¿verdad?
Project Alianza builds and staffs primary schools for rural coffee farm kids. And for kids in high school like Sofia, they provide scholarships and learning materials. Camila also works for them, and I spent a few days as a fly on the wall as she visited different rural coffee communities. Camila explains why Sofia is getting a chance to learn English in the first place.
So for this year, the curriculum is changing, and all schools have to, like by law, teach English. But they haven't trained the teachers. So what the kids are going to be learning, if anything, is going to be just like very poor English. They're not even going to learn how to pronounce.
Despite Camila being so encouraging of Sofia's dreams to become an English translator, behind closed doors, Camila adopts a darker tone.
I mean, they've been in school for, since the beginning of the month, and they know 3 phrases. You know, how are you? My name is, thank you.
Una palabra?
Thank you. You're welcome. Y my name is Joseph. Gracias. Thank you.
So, yeah.
What are the prospects for kids who have a full education here?
If they finish up to secondary school, then the problem of going to university becomes harder. The public universities are hard to get into because the tests are just very demanding, and in general because the education quality in rural schools is very poor. The kids often don't fare well. And the other option is for them to just pay for like a lower quality university, and then that's like, it's really hard to get that income, extra income for them to pay. Yeah.
Mucho gusto. Nice to meet you.
To get to university, Sofia either needs money or a higher quality secondary education. And right now, she has neither. Project Alianza is helping by giving her a scholarship that covers the cost of her $46 uniform. They've also provided her a smartphone, so now she can listen to accurate spoken English. Project Alianza are helping by making Sofia's road to a bright future as bright as possible. After meeting Sofia, Camila and I head back to the city, where I plan to meet the owners of this farm. I want to understand why they're not doing more to help Sofia. She is, after all, the daughter of one of their farm workers and a teenager who lives on their property. I find one of the owners in a high-end cafe.
I'm a coffee farmer. I was born and grew up in Nicaragua. I went to school to study agriculture and business and live abroad for like around 10 years and then decided to come back because I always wanted to live here.
If there were ever to be an example of rape of an underage kid on say, for example, in any of the roads in your neighborhood, maybe even to your farm, how would you feel about that?
It's just, it doesn't happen like that, you know. It's not like how you imagine. But it's not like someone would just grab you on the road and take you, you know. It's not like that.
The owner is basically saying that in these rural communities, things operate differently. Some teenage girls do have children with older men. Sometimes it's consensual, sometimes not. For example, the man who chased Sofia and her sister 2 weeks ago was not a stranger, but a man they both knew in the community. And the owner of this farm repeatedly stresses how safe the roads are.
But it's you don't worry about getting attacked in the road where we have the farm. You know, we have walk the farm in the communities, you know, and even at midnight, and we had never had any trouble, you know. And all the time we're alone, so
After a whole minute explaining why rape and assault are not an issue in his area, the owner finally answers my question. How would it feel if a girl was raped on the roads into your farm?
But I would feel horrible. If that's your question, I would try to do something.
My feelings towards this farm owner go back and forth. On the one hand, it's not his legal responsibility to police the roads leading into his farm, nor micromanage the sexual lives of the teenagers on his property. And in fact, this farm owner provides free, quality housing for his workers. And he's given Sofia's father a reliable job for over a decade. On the other hand, they provide less support to education initiatives than other coffee farms in this area. And to protect Sofia from sexual assault, how hard is it to give her a 10-minute motorcycle ride? He's convinced himself that social handouts aren't going to fix Sofia's problems.
You know, but it's regarding to the social stuff, it's looks nice, to be completely honest, but it's surely not the solution for people, you know. It's
To understand why he takes this approach, let's put ourselves in his shoes.
I think what are the challenges growing coffee right now?
It's just the whole model. It's broken. You know, it's slowly but surely. It's coffee. It's disappearing. It's shrinking, and it has like a hard future ahead. You know. And now with
the owner of this coffee farm is struggling. When this conversation was recorded in February 2018, the international price of coffee was collapsing towards $1 a pound, one of the lowest prices in almost 20 years. $1 a pound. I mean, let's pause here for a second. What does $1 a pound mean for the owners of this coffee farm in Nicaragua?
most people cannot continue working.
They're losing money.
And what it really takes is like $180 to actually grow being here in Nicaragua, a pound of coffee, you know. So $1.80.
This farm needs $1.80 per pound of coffee to have a sustainable business. If he sold it as commodity coffee on the international markets, he'd earn roughly $1. It's barely more than half of what he needs to keep his business alive. And in fact, after this interview, he lays off workers from the farm and those who remain with him don't get a paycheck for months. Jocelyn's father, luckily, is able to keep his job. Without this farm owner keeping a tight lid on costs, Sofia might not have a road to walk on in the first place.
Hello.
Give me a
Can
sec,
you hear
give me
me?
a sec. It's going to change a few sets.
I wanted to better understand what we, us coffee drinkers, can do in this situation to help Sofia.
Hello. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. Yes, I can hear you as well. Good.
So I called up a political economist.
So my name is Janina Grabs. I am a researcher on sustainability governance in commodity value chains, focusing my research on coffee.
So I want to connect the dots.
Through the supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah. So I spent $3 for a cappuccino the other day. And I'm assuming about 3 cents of that ended up into the hands of the owner of the farm in Nicaragua. How do I make that bigger?
There are a number of initiatives, especially linked to direct trade, where I would say they're doing a fairly good job in trying to make sure that a larger amount of the consumer dollar is flowing back to the farm.
Direct trade is a hotly debated phrase. Janina here is referring to a type of trade where a roaster buys from the same farm every single year and pays a high, sustainable price, regardless of what is happening in the international price of coffee. Most specialty roasters throw around terms such as direct trade, relationships, traceable. But they are not doing what I just described and what Janina is referring to.
In most circumstances, specialty buyers still peg their contracts to the C price. There's still much more linkage than you would actually expect.
Most specialty coffee roasters buy their coffees from a middleman, and they pay a premium over and above the international price of coffee, also known as the C price, which right now is at $1 a pound. It might sound like they're giving the farmer a good deal, but the reality could be different.
The C price is not a very good indicator of what you should be paying your coffee for your coffee in a given year.
So, although a roaster may say they pay, 40% more than the commodity price for their coffees, 40% more on $1 a pound is $1.40. The owner of Sofia's farm needs to earn $1.80 to stay in business in the long term. So how do we tell which roaster is doing Janina's vision of direct trade and which roaster is doing, just buying coffee from a middleman and inadvertently paying an unsustainable price? I mean, from the outside, they all kind of look the same.
One of the nice, very interesting new initiatives that has come up is a project at Emory University called Transparent Trade, where they've been asking a lot of their specialty buyers, what are you actually paying at origin for your pound, and how is that linked to quality?
If you go to the Transparent Trade website, you'll find dozens of roasters from across the world who have listed how much of the money you paid for your coffee went back to the country that coffee was produced in. And it ranges from 12% up to 45%. So the roasters at the top of this list are sending 3 times as much money back to the country the coffee came from. If you can't find your local roaster on this list, you can always ask them to join. Maybe you can use it as a test to determine whether this roaster shares your values. As valuable and long overdue this tool is, it's not perfect. It's got a blind spot, and Sofia is hiding in it. Imagine a situation where, specialty coffee is done right. We're being transparent. Prices are good. It goes to the farmer. But this is a larger estate. How would we have any assurance that the money would go down to Sofia's parents?
That is a very good question, and I don't think that we have very good answers for it.
At the end of the day, we coffee drinkers are going to struggle to get bona fide assurance that paying more for our cappuccino equates to more money in the hands of Sofia's parents. How do we reach Sofia? How do we get her to a position where she has enough money in her pocket, or her parents do, to give her the chance of an education? a decent education to get her to university, to be an English translator.
Of course, there are an increasing amount of companies that support NGO-driven projects like the one that you've visited.
Janina is referring to Project Alianza,
where at least for a small and select amount of children and youth, they are trying to help them find employment alternatives, try to educate them, try to...
But it feels like a Band-Aid.
Right, it is. On a larger scale, what you would need to be tackling is simultaneously the lack of financial stability of the sector, the institutional capacity of the entire state system, the educational reforms, the lawlessness that you have identified,
Janina's list goes on and on.
Again,
Zooming out this far and seeing the mountains standing in Sofia's way for her to reach her goal of being an English translator, I begin to wonder whether she's dreaming too big. Imagine you're Sofia's mother, and Sofia takes huge risks to her safety every time she goes to school. And the education she's getting is substandard. You will not be able to afford a good university for her because you earn $4 a day. What is the best that Sofia's mother can hope for her own daughter?
I mean, quite honestly, if you try to think rationally about this, one answer that a lot of people arrive at is encourage her to migrate up into the United States, right? This is why we're seeing all of those caravans happening, and they're very linked to the situation in coffee and other commodity crops.
Yeah.
I would not say that I encourage that option, but I understand the rationale behind it.
It's been a year since I spoke with Sofia and her family. As low coffee prices hit rural communities very hard, political unrest in Nicaragua led to the government murdering hundreds of protesters. You can learn more about this in episode 6 of Filter Stories, Aquiares. Sofia's father downgraded the family motorcycle and scraped together money to buy wood to build the new home, which is now closer to the secondary school. Sofia has 2 more years left of high school, and she's still set on becoming an English translator. Grace was raped again. Grace's family reported it to the police, but the police didn't investigate further. The family of the teenage boy suspected of raping her denied involvement and moved away. Grace then discovered she was pregnant, and Project Alianza covered the costs of getting her to see a doctor to deliver the baby. The international price of coffee is still at $1 a pound. Hey guys, thanks for listening. This was a heavy one. Thanks for sitting through it. I gotta say, I even shed a couple of tears after I put this one together. I love a happy story, as we all do, but this one was really important, and I didn't want to hold back any punches. This is the reality of how things are in many parts of Central America. And along those lines, that's kind of the reason why maybe you will have noticed that it was pretty heavily anonymized. You know, you don't know who the farm is, you don't know where in Nicaragua this took place. Even Sofia, that's not her real name. She didn't want me to use her real name. The farm owner, definitely anonymized. This wasn't a piece of gotcha journalism, where I was going to vilify somebody here. The system is broken, and I wanted just to point that out. But speaking of Nicaragua and Aquiares, the Kickstarter went really, really well. In a week, we got over 200% funded. It's so cool that so many of you came together with this. I'm really excited to send you this coffee and this little personalized card from Alfonso that he's signing very soon. So you can put that up on your fridge with a Filter Stories fridge magnet. There's still time to get involved. The Kickstarter ends on the 20th of March. There are links in the episode description. I'm about to leave Berlin for a little while to collect some more stories. So If you're interested in following my travels, like the little sojourn I did recently down to Naples, you can follow my travels through Instagram at Filter Stories Podcast. But because I'm traveling, stories are going to come out a little less regularly now, maybe every 5 or 6 weeks. I want to give 2 thanks here. Dom Edgley. You will have noticed the really careful attention to detail on the from the B tape, the atmosphere. It kind of feels like you're in the country all the time. That's down the Dom. If you need him, you can get him at domedgleysound.com. And the other quick thanks is to Headquarters, the branding and packaging design team that created the Filter Stories logo. And finally, I want to play you this.
I have this glass of milk. Ouch! I hurt myself. That milk's really hot. Boy, I wanted it. But you gotta be careful. Don't burn yourself. Froth it. I milk it like a cow for 20 seconds with my handy-dandy milk frother. Bing! Done, chum.
Yeah, so this is pretty whack. It's one of the most whack things I've ever seen on YouTube. I'm going to include a link to this and a more professional brew guide as well in the Filter Stories newsletter. It comes out once a month and you can sign up to it in the episode description as well. That's it, guys. Thanks for listening. Till next time.